Hello and welcome. The first 100 days of an American president is considered a crucial marker and the first indicator on how he's performing. Wednesday marks Barack Obama's 100 days since his historic inauguration, and after campaigning on an agenda of hope and change, he's facing some of the toughest challenges possible. The U.S. is going through the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. There's a worrying growth in the influence of the Taliban in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And America's image on the global stage is in desperate need of repair. Well, despite these challenges, President Obama is enjoying the best presidential job approval rating in 2 decades. But is he really delivering what Americans voted for? Well, just a few weeks before the election, we spoke with a group of young people from the prestigious Howard University, an historic African-American college here in Washington, D.C., to find out what they were expecting from their leadership. Now, 100 days on, we've invited Howard University students back to speak with us to assess the progress so far. Well, CORRYN and Austin, I know you've been here. Guys, I'll get you in just a moment. CORRYN, I'm going to start with you and ask what you made of that inauguration speech. Did Barack Obama promise too much? Did he unite people? What do you feel has come out of that?
Well, for his inauguration speech, I feel like he hasn't promised too much. I feel like he has a lot on his plate. I feel like he would like to do a lot with America, with image control, fixing America's image, and even with domestic issues. But I feel like for the first 100 days, he has not been able to deliver what he would like so far because he's dealing with the economy. Well,
exactly. Last time you were talking about the need for more education, education as a priority. He has put in his stimulus package something for education and tuition, college tuition. But is that going to be a priority? Could it ever be a priority when everything else has gone downhill so much?
I believe the economy is, as of right now, is the first priority. Before we can work on anything domestically or honestly even overseas, I feel like we need to work on fixing the American economy.
Austin, great to have you back too. And you were talking about a fairer tax system last time. What do you make of when tax filing has just been April 15th in America has just passed, and there were all these tea parties, the protests as they call them, the tea parties. What did you make of those protests and how Barack Obama's handling the economy?
Well, I think on the tax issue specifically, he did pass his tax cuts where 95% of Americans, middle-class Americans, got a tax break. And the percentage of Americans who were receiving the large, enormous tax increases or breaks under George Bush are now having to pay more taxes, and I think that's a more fair system, and that's what he promised during the campaign. But on the other side, we've also seen the largest transfer of wealth in U.S. history, where corporations, the multinational corporations, have gotten trillions of dollars in taxpayer money. So it's kind of a mixed bag when you start to talk about that. And I didn't hear the people who were protesting at the teabag parties really talking about the transfer of wealth to the top corporations.
JERELL, good to have you here as well. Now, you're one of those who also wants a political career. I know others in the group are looking at that kind of direction too. When you assess the first 100 days, what do you make of the progress so far?
Well, I'm kind of against these artificial kind of timelines, the first 100 days, the first 200 days. I think so far he has been doing pretty well. However, I would like a larger spotlight on issues in urban America. I'm originally from Trenton, New Jersey, and we definitely have very, very pressing issues that are shared with other cities like Detroit and, the entire state of Michigan. And so I would like him to have a bigger spotlight on issues. I mean, the unemployment rate in Trenton, New Jersey is 17%, and I want to make sure that the stimulus dollars go to the ground and help the people in all of these inner cities around America.
Do you think expectations were raised too high?
Considering the check that he wrote, I think it's important for Americans to hold him accountable. One part of his appeal was the fact that he promised a new day. He talked about a different day. He talked about change. And so we have to hold him accountable.
LYDIA, finally an African-American in the White House. I mean, people didn't expect this to happen, but there are a lot saying that, there are critics in perhaps even the white community saying, okay, problem solved. Now we've done this, don't have to focus on the race issue anymore. Do you feel that it's going to make a major difference to race relations in America?
I think that's an excellent question. I think being an African American, firstly, we start to reevaluate ourselves as far as issues on affirmative action, and we start to debate whether or not those are necessary anymore, because we obviously have an instance where an African American has made it to what's seen by many people as the highest position in our country. So it makes us come back to the drawing board and look at what exactly is the issue in America. And I think beyond race, it goes to critical things such as education, which is one of my passions. And I believe once we start focusing a lot more on education, we're getting to the root of the problem, and then things such as unemployment and the economy being bad will be fixed because everyone will have a better, I guess, root in the system and have a better chance to make something of themselves and contribute to the economy.
Charles, you're something of an entrepreneur. Welcome, by the way. You've been quite active at Howard University in setting up student-led teaching, and I gather it's going very well. Congratulations on that. So you obviously got to focus on where things move forward. Based on what Lydia was saying, based on your own assessments, do you feel that having the first African-American president, someone who's a leader across a number of cultures and races in some ways, is helping to make Americans think again about who they are, what they are in the world, and how the different aspects of the community can work together?
Well, I think, I guess to tackle kind of an earlier question that you introduced, I definitely agree with JERELL in that I think artificial timetables like the first 100 days are, kind of not really necessary and don't really get to the heart of the matter and really improve things per se. But I guess to your particular question, I do think that having an African American in the White House is really going to be able to change perceptions of African Americans themselves and how they think about themselves in the world and their place in the United States. For example, like Martin Luther King had a dramatic effect on the way that African Americans really see themselves and what they could be or what they should be. And I do think having Barack Obama in the White House is really going to change perceptions of how African Americans see themselves.
JERELL.
As a student of history, I want to go back to looking at a comment that Martin Luther King gave to a question where someone asked, how do you feel, what do you think about the possibility of an African-American president? And he actually said something very, very interesting. He said, number one, there are African-Americans who are qualified, and that the only reason is that there haven't been a black president or any other type of president because the doors were closed. And so I think it's important to recognize the significance of Barack Obama being the first African-American president. However, I don't think it's a good thing to do to think that the ascension of a biracial, his mother had a PhD, his father was a Phi Beta Kappa graduate of the University of Hawaii, a master's from Harvard. He was a very, very special case. He's a very special guy, and just because he became president doesn't mean that we have overcame. We need more things done, and I think a lot of white conservatives are looking at this as an opportunity to say, you know what, let's close the door on racial progress, and that's unnecessary, and it's not a good thing to do. That's
what I was touching on in CORRYN. Actually, it's not just a question of Barack Obama. Of course, it's the whole family in the White House, and Michelle Obama has a role to play. Just a quick thought on how, of course, she's going to touch a root of society as well. And how do you feel she fares as First Lady?
I think she's a phenomenal First Lady. I feel like Michelle Obama is a wonderful example to women of all creeds, women of all backgrounds. She is a woman who came up, pulled herself up by her own bootstraps, wasn't necessarily born with a silver spoon in her mouth. She's brilliant. With her law degree, I think Michelle Obama is a phenomenal First Lady. She's something different. She's not the classic First Lady that we've always seen. It feels like she's playing a role, but I feel like Michelle Obama is a true, genuine woman who actually cares about the community and the United States people.
Well, back to the president, Austin. We've got so many things going on across the world, and the U.S. has got its own issues. Do you think that Barack Obama's done the right thing, moving so heavily into the international arena so quickly? He's been talking about Afghanistan, Iraq, the Israeli-Palestinian situation, even the drug situation with Mexico, Colombia. Has he focused too far overseas and forgotten what's going on at home?
I think after the Bush administration, it was necessary for him to come out and try and reassert American leadership in the world, and we've seen that with him talking to leaders like in Iran, at the diplomatic level, also talking to Hugo Chavez as recently at the Summit of the Americas, but in general trying to change the tone, including the announcement of the torture memos that was such a great signal to the rest of the world. And so I think that's necessary because in order to move forward with the domestic issues and the economy, you're going to have to be able to make some allegiances and have long-term alliances in the international arena as well.
I'm going to get on to some other issues, but JERELL, on this issue, because I know we were chatting just briefly before the show on the torture issues, torture memos, and you felt there has to be accountability.
I mean, absolutely. If you don't prosecute the issues who are responsible for these heinous acts of, torture, when do you prosecute? This is a wonderful opportunity for us to really be true to what we say on paper. We have to hold these folks accountable, and I think folks like Vice President Cheney are emboldened when we don't go after them for going after such a critical part of our history. You know, our adherence to the Geneva Convention and other rules of law during war is important, and they play a very critical role in how we're viewed overseas. We can never allow the acts at you know, the prison in Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib. We have to do something, and they have to be held accountable.
Well, go ahead, Austin.
I was just going to say that's one of the most challenging things about the administration moving forward, is that at the same time where he's talking to leaders, we do see an increase of troop numbers and presence in Afghanistan and continued bombings in Pakistan. So while we're seeing a message of tolerance, on the other hand, we're seeing more aggression, more war. And
Well, he's inherited a lot as well. I mean, you know, you would say, of course, he has to deal with this. Now, on the issue of accountability, Lydia, do you feel that it should go right to the top? I mean, a lot of people overseas are asking for President George W. Bush, you know, his predecessor, Barack Obama's predecessor, to be held accountable. Should prosecutions go that high?
I think personally, a lot of times we expect too much, and sometimes we don't know where exactly to place the responsibility. And I remember once in high school we discussed the authority-responsibility gap. And I think firstly, Americans automatically attribute every good thing or every negative thing to be that of the president. And there are a lot of people who play roles that we don't consider. There are past administrations, as we've all mentioned, Barack Obama did inherit a lot on his plate. That must be taken into account. And there are also other individuals, the Senate, the Congress, who are also held responsible for these things. So as far as accountability, I think that a lot of this is coming from the hope that Barack Obama put in millions of people's lives, and we're wanting all of these things to happen under his rule, under his leadership, and we just have to keep in mind that it is going to be over time. We can't just expect, oh, it's been 100 days. Did he do what he said he would do in 100 days?
Charles, I want to get your opinion, but we've hit that point where we have to take a short break. We'll be back with more on this debate in a moment. Don't go away.